okay. Oh, there's no questions now, so we can all go back to bed. No? Uh-oh. So, here come the questions again. Very good. So, the first question tonight. How to deal with a world that is full of hatred? Oh, just get enlightened and leave. Could you please... No, I better do it properly. The world is not full of hatred. John the Grove lives in the world, and this place is totally empty of hatred. So it's not full. You got hatred some places, but not everywhere. There's a lot of kindness in this world, a lot of compassion. And that is why that it's nice for good people to travel out in the world and smile at people in the subway in New York. Hi, how are you doing today? I look a bit weird, so I can act weird in the subway in New York. And say hello to people. And it's nice that people always treat you with kindness, and they treat you with respect when you treat them back with kindness and respect. So that's why we see in the world what we look for. So if you're convinced the world is a really bad place, then that's what you see. There's so much kindness, so much goodness in this world. But you won't see that in the newspapers. If they tell you a good story in the newspapers, people don't look at it. That's why I like the comics. There are always good stories in there. So, anyway, what to do is don't look for the hatred. Look for the kindness. Don't look for the 2 bad bricks in the wall. Look for the other bricks. And what you look for, that's what you will see, and that's what you will find. Just like going over to prisons. You can go in a prison and look at all the terrible things these people have done. But they've also done some really nice and kind things as well. They certainly always look after me whenever I go into prison, and you always feel so safe when I go there. For example, one of the prisons which I used to visit regularly, it used to be the Canning Vale prison. I think it's called Acacia now. They changed all the names, still the same old place. But I went in there one day to do the usual class, and at the entrance when you checked in, the police officers said, I've got to give you this little pen. Looked like an ordinary biro pen. And I said, I don't need a pen. He said, listen, this is a security device. There's been many visitors who've been raped by the prisoners. Not just girls, boys as well. Ooh. Because many of those prisoners have got nothing to lose. So, he said, this is a security device. On the ceiling, you'll see all these sensors which look like smoke detectors. They are not smoke detectors. If you get attacked, take that pen and just press the little button at the top. It's not just the pen comes out. You press it, point it at one of those sensors, and we'll know exactly where you are, and we'll come and rescue you. It's our new security device. But don't tell any of the prisoners. He said, put it in your pocket. And I looked at the guy and said, what are you talking about? I don't have a pocket. I'm wearing robes. Oh, just hold it in your hand, put it somewhere. So then I went into my class with my security. the little pen. And as soon as I got into the class, one of my old friends said, the same friend who just interrupted me the first time I went there, and they say, is it really true that through meditation you can fly over walls? It was that guy. And I won't tell you that story, but actually that happened. Okay, here we go. It's about 105 people in the prison. 100 people came to my talk. Amazing. I was really inspired. I thought bad people wouldn't be interested in good things. They were all, the only people who couldn't come were the ones in solitary confinement, sick, or they were really, literally couldn't come. Almost a whole prison population came to my first talk on meditation. And this guy, the same guy I'm just going to talk about with the security device, he stood up and he's in the middle of my talk, is it really true that through meditation you can learn how to fly over walls? And that's when I realized why so many people had come to my meditation class. Absolutely true. And when I said it's really rare that you can levitate and it takes a lot of practice, years and years and years, then the next week when I went, there were only 3 people turned up, which showed what they were really interested in meditation for, to escape. But anyway, a few of them stayed, and this was one guy, really big guy. And as I walked into the room for the meditation class, the first thing he said to me, he said, oh, you've got one of those security devices as well. Oh, the prisoners knew what they were. And then he looked at me really serious, a big guy, and he said, Ajahn Brahm, do you really think you could press that button before I got to you and raped you? And I looked at him and I said, no. He said, no, you wouldn't be able to. I'm that fast. But then he smiled and said, don't worry, because in this prison we like you and respect you because of the way you've treated us. So if any of these guys behind try it, I will get to them first. And I was really pleased about that. It's so cute because you don't protect yourself with security devices, you protect yourself with your kindness and goodness. That is far more safeguard than anything else. So how do you deal with a world that is full of, number one, it's not full of hatred. And where you see hatred and anger, see the other part of a person. And then when you see the other part of the person, they just melt. Especially prisoners who've never had much respect in their life. They've hardly ever had any kindness. And you give them a tiny bit of kindness, and it's just so amazing for them. And they will protect you. I never felt as safe as in that prison. Because I had all my friends there, and they would do anything to protect me, because I was kind to them, respected them, looked after them. So that is how to deal with a world full of hatred. See the other side of a person, and they will always be kind to you and look after you. And that's the amazing sort of little truth. How do you deal with a marriage which is full of hatred? It's not full of hatred. You're just seeing one part of the war. So what do? If you have hatred, it's the old story. If you really got a lot of hatred for somebody, your boss at work, your partner, whoever it is, even like Donald Trump, you write his name on the top of the piece of paper. And you drew a line down the middle. And on the left-hand side of that piece of paper, you write all the terrible things about that person. All the rotten things they've done in their life. All the reasons why they're worthy of your hatred. Because you don't have hatred without a cause. Someone's really done some bad stuff. You write that on the left-hand side of the paper. It's very easy to do. Fills up so quickly. And on the right-hand side, you have to write down all their wonderful good qualities. And then you start objecting. Donald Trump has not got any good qualities. He's destroying the environment. He's causing just divisions by building walls. So it's very hard. But then you say, look, building walls, that's creating a lot of work for people who aren't sort of got any work at all. He's a wonderful source of jokes which make people happy. You write that down. And soon, no one's all bad. So you write them down, and soon you fill the other half of the paper. It's just learning that nobody in this world is all bad. And number two, nobody is all good. We all have our faults and the silly things which we do from time to time. So, when you realize that, you realize you don't have hatred for people. I don't know why. And anyway, it must be the karma of all those people who live in the United States. So don't complain, all of you people who live in the US, Susan. Your karma. You should have migrated to Australia, to Perth. So instead of complaining about it, we realize, anyway, it will pass. However bad it gets, remember, it can always get worse. But then it can get better again afterwards. It's just what happens in life. So how to deal with a world that's full of anger? No one is not full of anger. There's lots of really amazing, wonderful, good people which come on. There's some bad stuff, but we just focus on the bad stuff too much. And because we focus on the bad stuff, people show us more bad stuff. So I feel a lot of compassion for poor old Donald. Nobody likes him. So I volunteer to give him a hug. I could send him a teddy bear. That'd be nice. Anyway, could you please tell us stories about supernatural things? I got told off last night telling the stories, said that many of the Indonesians are terrified of hantu. Hantu is ghost. Hantu, yeah. Hantu, ghost, yes. Terrified. So you're always terrified of supernatural things. But why is it you like to hear stories of supernatural things? So this is the story of, this is the, I'll give you two supernatural stories. The first one about, some of you have heard this story before, about an Australian girl. She went to visit England, and just as a tourist. And one of the first things she did was go to visit a castle. And this was one of these really old castles, hundreds, over 1,000 years old, some of these castles. That's why it's one of the things people do. They don't have such old castles in places like United States or Australia or even Hong Kong. So I went to see one of these really old castles. And if you know your history, some really bad, evil things were done in those castles. So if there's a ghost anywhere, that's the place you'll find them. And she went into this castle, and it was one of the scariest places she'd ever been. Really spooky. It was so cold down there. And every time she stepped on these old floorboards, creak. And every time they opened this old door, and even the wind whistled through the open windows. It would even make Arnold Schwarzenegger a bit scared. And She couldn't wait until the tour was over. And after it was over, she felt safe when she got up to the top. So she turned to her guide and asked her guide, he said, "Are there any ghosts in this castle? Are there any ghosts here?" And the guide said, "In all the years I've lived in this castle, I've never ever seen a ghost." "How long have you lived in this castle?" 300 years, said the guide. "That's the trouble. You don't know who the ghost is. It could be sitting next to you right now." But real ghost stories aren't like that. Real ghost stories are really kind and nice. Just like one of the latest ones was the ghost dog. This was, I just see who actually lives. So many of you will know this fella. He's a Thai boxer. He goes on his gym in Northbridge. And I've known him for such a long time. And he told me this story. His neighbour, he was a builder. Oh, I don't know if he was a builder, bricklayer or something. And he had a dog. And sometimes the dogs, they get old. But the dogs are like part of the family in places like Australia. So when this dog started to get old and sick, took him to the vet. And the vet did everything for this dog. But it got to that time, the doctor said, "I can't do anything more. And so, with your permission, I'll give it the injection to euthanize the dog." So the dog died in its owner's arms. Really sad, but that's the best you can do. The next morning, absolutely true story, the next morning when the builder got up to go to work, he opened the front door of his house, and outside the house was a dog who looked exactly the same as the dog who had died the day before in his arms. And he was a bit surprised to see it looked exactly the same, and this dog just went right past him into the house, and he followed him into the house. This was really weird. It looked exactly like his dog. And that dog lay down in all of its favorite corners of the house where it used to sleep. You would lay down just for 10 or 20 seconds and then get up and go to another corner. Then it went out the back door of the house to a leaky tap where it would always take a drink in the hot weather. And then it went up the stairs to the bedroom where his wife was still half asleep. And the dog would always do the ritual before it went to work with the master of leaning up, and his wife would kiss the dog. A really silly ritual, but if you have a dog like that, she would lean over and kiss the dog before the dog went to work as a companion for the builder. And so she was half asleep. She didn't remember that the dog had died, so she leant over and kissed the dog. And then the dog, having done all its usual things, went down out of the house and tried to jump in the car of the builder. But that was too much for the builder. He said, "No, you can't do this. You can't go to work." And the dog turned around and ran away and was never seen again. It was his dog. Came back one last time to visit the house. No, just to visit its favorite corners where it would lay down, take a drink, and give its mistress one last kiss before it disappeared. Real story of a ghost dog. So when you're half asleep in the morning, be careful of what you kiss. That could be Hindu dog. But that's really nice, and that's a real story. The real ghost stories are really cute. And they're really just quite nice. So sometimes people say that if that's your dog who died, you'd just love to see them one more time. Make sure they're happy. You'd love to actually to see somebody just for one last time. Say goodbye properly. So real ghosts are not scary. Only the ones in the movies. They're the scary ones. But the real ones are always really nice and helpful. They're very beautiful. So, the first one was just a joke, by the way. Didn't really happen. Dear Ajahn, can you share again your practical use of meditation in daily life, such as the examination for the young people here? Oh, first of all, if you haven't heard this before, this is one of the famous ones taught in Harvard Business School. How heavy is my cup of water? The longer you hold it, the heavier it feels. After 3 minutes, it's very heavy, and I can't really hold it comfortably. Nothing to do with the weight of the cup and how much water is in there. It only gets difficult to hold and painful because you're holding it for too long. And all you need to do is to put it down, just for a couple of minutes. And if you don't believe me, you can try this for yourself. Ehi passiko, come and see, pachatang vedita bohi vinyuhi, to be experienced every wise person for themselves. Classic Buddhist teachings, which just chanted a few moments ago. So try it out. When I pick it up now, it actually feels much lighter. And I can carry it without any stress because I've rested. And that is the trick to overcome stress at work. When it gets too heavy to do your job comfortably, and when your brain is really running on low battery, then what should you do? Put it down, relax and recharge. And you say, but I haven't got time to do that. This is where Harvard Business School calls it an investment of time. You put it down for 15 minutes or half an hour, and when you pick it up again, it's no stress, easy to handle, and your brain, having rested, becomes more efficient. You are more productive. When you've rested, your brain can do more. And it's really good quality stuff. You ask your kids, if you see your kids working 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night on some assignment, they're staring at the screen. 1 hour, they only get maybe one sentence done, and it's rubbish. Instead, relax. Just let go. Recharge your brain. And half an hour of relaxing, resting, recharging your brain afterwards, the assignment, 3 hours work done in 1 hour of really good quality, because now your brain is productive and efficient. And the trouble with stress is we're just afraid of just relaxing, or we don't know how to relax. So we keep pushing, and pushing and pushing and pushing. We just get more and more stressed, more angry at all the people we love and care for, just because we're stressed out. And also, it means that we don't produce very much. And this is just so well known, researched, documented. It makes sense, but it also actually can be proved. Half an hour when you feel stressed out, relaxing. Afterwards, recharge. You make up that half an hour really quickly. More work done, much higher quality, and also you're not so irritated and angry. So it's such a simple teaching. But I'm really amazed as how my teachings go all around the place. And there was a ceremony here in Perth. It was the Thai water festival. And I was invited just to attend. And there, have all these these VIPs. I'm not a VIP, I'm a VIM. Very important monk, not VIP. So, and they had the local member of parliament for Perth. And you always have these politicians, giving speech. If you invite a politician, it's very hard to keep them quiet. So they want to give a speech. So this politician gave a speech, and she went up there, and I was listening to her in the front row, laughing my head off, because she said she had a glass of water. She said, I've heard from a very wise person, she didn't realize it came from me, that the reason of stress is because you've got a cup and you're holding it for too long. That was so funny. She didn't realize it came from me. I invented that story. And I told her after, that's my story, I'm going to sue you for playing. I don't sue people. But I was actually quite pleased because it got around. You don't know where she got it from, but that was an original Ajahn Brahm story. But it was helping people. So I don't care where it goes to as long as it's being of service. And so that is why that if you can put down the glass of water, you don't have any stress. That's how it works. And you can always take a half an hour somewhere. People say, but look, there's no place to meditate in my business. Of course there is. Why is it in the United States and Canada they call the toilets rest rooms? So go in there and take a rest. And if your boss says, you've been in there half an hour, why? Now, being a Buddhist, you can't lie. So what you say, I was constipated. That's not a lie. You were, but constipated in here. So that's okay. And you can sit in the toilet. You can get a nice little cushion in there, sit on the toilet or something. It's very comfortable, and people will leave you alone, which means that you can relax. So that's a good thing to do, and it works. People get much happier and more productive. And that's also why I keep on saying that, I always go to these places like Google. Last time was Google Manhattan. It's amazing just how much popular. They keep on buying new stuff over there. So a huge amount of buildings over there. And that they value meditation, so that's why they keep sort of promoting it, inviting me over there to teach meditation to these geeks. And so I've got my cred with the younger generation. I've been to Facebook headquarters and Google headquarters, been to Google in Singapore as well. Has Google got an office in Jakarta? Okay, maybe one day. How about Hong Kong? No, anyway. But anyway, that's given me cred with the young generation. So anyway, what it means is that they have meditation rooms. They teach and any time of the day or night, you can actually go there to meditate. Dell does the same, Samsung. Because without that, people get stressed out. It's an investment in time. Your business makes a lot of money on it. And we also have that over here in Bodhinyana Monastery. Anytime you want to meditate, monks, you can. You're supposed to meditate. So that really works and helps out a lot. So, and it's for young people. Again, I don't know how many young people that, maybe your kids, that they've done the study, they know the subject, and they go an exam, and they get so stressed and so anxious, they fail. And they know what to do, they they lock up inside out of anxiety and fear. So I've seen that so often. Really good kids, they're just afraid. The pressure's on them, that's why they don't do well in exams. So, it was only 2 or 3 years ago, those people who live in Perth, the Jewish school is called Carmel School. It's over in Dianella. So I went, and I don't know why they don't keep inviting me over there, that when I went over there, it was just talking to the year 12s, that's just university entrance, and talking to them, and I told them how to do well in exams. Just the day before, no books, just go and relax, just go for a walk, teach some basic meditation, or listen to your favourite music or something. Tell your parents, get your favourite food, and have a good night's sleep. You've done your study, now you've got to prepare and energize your brain. And you go there, don't get your parents, lock up all your books 24 hours before so you can't study. You've got the information there, now you've got to prepare your brain to energize it so it's at its full potential when you go to the exam room. And I never met the principal when I went there, but I got this letter back from the principal. Thank you so much. That year they got top school in the whole of the state. They didn't get it last year or the year before, and that's their fault. They never invited me. So that it works. So anyway, that's how we do things. Dear Ajahn, if there is no permanent essence in us, what reincarnates into the new body with scars or habits from the previous life? No permanent essence, but a process. What the Buddha called the stream of consciousness. Just like if you go on a bridge, but be careful if it's Westminster Bridge, and you look at the river flowing underneath. It looks the same, but you all know it's different water. It looks the same, but it's totally different, which is this stream of consciousness, always changing. It's a process. It's not nothing. It's not something. It's a process. It's that process reincarnates. Just like you eat a mango, a delicious, juicy mango. And after eating that mango, you take the seed and you plant it in your garden. And you know what happens once that seed is in the garden, it germinates. Just cause and effect, uses a bit of moisture at the right time, the seed splits and a little green shoot comes out. And it grows and grows and grows and grows, and then it finally pushes its way through the top of the soil into the clear air. And it receives sun and warmth, and it grows and grows. It looks like a bit of grass at first, but then it goes bigger and the base becomes wooden. It becomes a stem. And then it grows more until it becomes a sapling and puts a few little very thin branches. Year after year it grows bigger and the trunk becomes stronger and wider, and soon it becomes a young tree. And then the day comes when it's not even that big for a mango tree. It has its flowers on all these branches. And you can see those little flowers, very pretty, and after a while the base of that flower, it starts to swell, become bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's the fruit being formed. And when it's really nice and big, for the mangoes, it starts to change a little bit of color, a little tiny bit of red. It's ripe. And you eat that mango and it's so sweet and juicy. But what went from the first mango to the new mango? It's just a process, cause and effect. And probably there's nothing in the new mango which was in the original mango. Even sometimes the DNA changes slightly. It's not always the same. It grows and develops. But still that new mango has many qualities of the old mango. Number one, it's a mango, not an orange. And it's also, if the original mango was sweet, the new mango is going to be sweet. It carries some of the karma from the original mango, but nothing goes across. That is like rebirth, reincarnation. A whole process. And you take any little piece of that process, like the death process. You can see the death process, the brain turning off and the mind taking over, which is one of the most fascinating times. Because I was giving a talk in Singapore in Renchi Hospital about the dying process. It was with another doctor. So the doctor was doing the doctor stuff about dying, and I was doing the psychic stuff, the mind stuff about what happens when you die. And there's one thing I've noticed, that when a person dies, they're in a coma, they're just unresponsive. But then I've seen this, that as soon as the death starts to happen, they open their eyes. They can see. They can hear. And they've been in a coma for days. Where have you been, Michelle? Nice to see you again, Stephen. And they're alert, awake. So I did a quick straw poll. There's a few doctors and nurses there, the palliative care unit. I say, how many of you have had that experience? People in coma, people even Alzheimer's, dementia, and then the last few moments they just literally don't wake up and they know who's around. And all these hands went up. It's very well known, that dying process, the brain is finished and your mind takes over. And that's usually just before they pass away. And then, floating out of your body, this is supernatural, more supernatural stuff. And there's so many documentaries, there's so many people tell you what it's like to die. And my favorite one, it'd be great if I'm encouraging you to bad things, to download it from the BBC. Is that illegal? I don't have the ability to do that. I'm not really high tech. I go visit Google and tell them what to do, but I don't know anything about internet. But this was a BBC documentary. Somebody showed me about life after death. And they interviewed this woman, and she said her experience. She was always really sick, this disease, that disease, and when she had an operation to fix something up again, she died on the operating table. And she floated out of her body, and she was having such a wonderful time until she met a spirit on the other side. And the spirit told her, it's not your time. You have to go back to your body. And being a modern woman with her rights, she said, I am not going back to that mess of a body. I'm glad to be rid of it. And the spirit said, but you have to go back. No way, but you must. What part of no don't you understand, spirit? And they had an argument on the psychic plane. She didn't want to go back. She had enough. You know, when you get an old, sick body, there's always an ache here, a pain there. You always have to go to have a test for this. And it's really unpleasant when you get to that stage. But the spirit said, no, you have to go back. No. So they had this big argument. And obviously she came back, otherwise she wouldn't be able to tell it on BBC. But what happened, she said, the spirit somehow got hold of her and threw her back into the body. You know, almost like physically, because you wouldn't do it voluntarily. And that's when she screwed up her face, you know, on the BBC documentary. I can't do this because I've got no training being angry. But he says something like, and when I die next time, when I really die, when I properly die, the first thing I'm going to do is find that guy. And I've worked out what I'm going to do to him. And I'm going to make him suffer. I'm going to hit him, kill him, burn him, whatever, because what he did to me is unforgivable. She was so angry at that spirit for making her come back again. So that's a nice little story, because it shows you when you die, you're free. Woohoo! So why are you so afraid of dying? Bring it on, I say. No, but if you're in that particular case, then it's beautiful. But on another tale of the supernatural. We have one of our monks over there, Nibbutto, his name is. He's from the Punjab. So you can actually, when you go over there, you can sort of ask him, say, this is true, it's absolutely true story. It happened in his village in the Punjab. Now, first of all, the backstory is that this is people who follow the Sikh tradition. All of the men are usually, they've got the surname Singh, and all of the women, they've got, I think, was it Drugpa or something? Cole. Okay, well anyway, they've all got the same surname. So the only distinguishing was their first name. So this is an important part to understand the story. And so one day in his village, this old woman died. So, got her checked out, she was dead. So they had to arrange the funeral service according to the Sikh rites. So they got the funeral pyre together, they did some chanting, and they were going to do the cremation in the evening. That'd be the same day. And just before the cremation, she came to life again. She woke up. And she told the story that when she died, she floated up out of her body, and these two spirits, they led her to this place where you're supposed to find out your good karma or bad karma. And as soon as they arrived in this place, the head guy started scolding these two spirits. You've got the wrong core. It's not this lady, it's another lady. Take her back, you idiots. So even spirits make mistakes. And so they took her back, and that's the story she told. And as soon as they took her back, there was another lady by the same name passed away. They got the right one this time. That's a crazy story, but it's true, it happened. And I told that to some Thais the other day, and they say, yeah, that happens. It was in her village, they got it wrong that somebody had died, and they were in the coffin, okay? The open coffin, and the monks were there doing the funeral chanting, for this woman who had died. And one of the ladies there, she was present. Actually, she's coming, I think Tuesday she comes, this woman. And she was present, and she saw her, she was only a kid at the time. And then the woman in the coffin opened her eyes and leant up. And she'd never seen monks run so fast. So-called holy monks. They were the first out of the door, followed by her and her friends. They got the death wrong. They lost a bit of faith in the monks, but okay. So anyway, so that's where these things happen. Really weird stories, weird things. So that's what actually, no permanence, a process, like a river or like how mangoes reincarnate. Dear Ajahn, during the sutta session today, you mentioned about unwise questions. One question was, who was I before? However, as far as I know, the Buddha has mentioned that he was Jyotipada during the time of the Kassapa Buddha, if I'm right. So if who was I before, an unwise question, why did the Buddha say he was Jyotipada in the previous life? Remember that when I said who was I in the previous life, the way the question is what was my soul in the previous life? It's always the idea that this being is reincarnated, it doesn't change, it's a permanent essence. You look inside them and go, what is there in the beginning, which is there in the middle, which is there in the end? Is anything there? Nothing. Even like a river, what was there in the beginning, which is there tomorrow? It's just like the shape, the course of the river, the banks. That actually defines it. That's like the karma which is how you recognize things. Those banks are positioned is the same. It actually doesn't, not the same, it does change. Rivers actually change, some of them disappear over hundreds and hundreds of years. So even like rivers, they can say have a karma. But you recognize them because it's the water in that place. So, what it was is, who was I before? And it's much better to say, where did I come from? Where has that process come from? That is okay. And that can happen naturally to you. And for me, actually, I think it's not a bad thing by trying to find out your previous life, where you came from, because that's really cool and awesome. So many people have done that. And the way to do that, there's two ways of doing that, getting into your past lives. The first way of doing that, the traditional way, is getting deep meditation. You've got to get really powerful meditation to do this. Usually just post-jhana meditation. So your mind is incredibly powerful. And you feel it's powerful. You can sense you can do stuff. So all you need to do with that type of power is ask yourself the question, what is my earliest memory? Simple. And what happens is you usually go back to some time in your early life. Now, I have to be really careful because it's a rule. The eighth Pajitya rule. I can't really let people know too much about what I can do, what I can't do. But because you ask the monks, I'm an expert in these rules, and being an expert, I know all the loopholes. Just like any other lawyer. And this is one of the loopholes. Is I can't tell you about previous lives, but I can say just, this life. And that's my loophole. But this is absolutely true. Nice meditation, deep meditation. Afterwards, I ask myself, what is my earliest memory? And this is actually what happens. If you got the meditation skill, you really are peaceful, straight away a memory will come up. If you wait for a few seconds, then no, your mind is not ready for it yet. If it happens, almost immediately. And what happened to me was I had this smell in my nose. It wasn't in the hall. Actually, I think this occurred in the Dhamma hall over in Bodhinyana. You get this smell. And straight away, with that smell, I recognized that this was the smell of the pram, the little stroller where I was put when I was first born. And as soon as you remembered that, then you had the vision of the pram. And you had enough freedom, you could explore it. It was like being back there. Just like you're in this room, you can see what's on the ceiling, you can count the number of lights, you could see all the air vents in there, whatever you want to pay attention to, you can actually see. So that's what it was like. You're in your baby's pram, maybe only a few weeks old, and you can have a look around. And that's when I saw my favorite toy as a baby. This was this little blue, it's like plastic pig, light blue. And it had some beans or something inside, and my mother would shake it, and I would laugh. And she called it Porky Pig. And I was only a few weeks old at the time. And you could look all around, but what I really noticed was weird, how I could recognize everything, even my mother, not by what she looked like, but the smell. The smell was my dominant sense. That was how I first got in contact with the first few weeks of my life, and how you explored everything. My little pillow, little blanket, little black blanket, which was in that pram, they called it, I recognized everything by its smell, even my mum. And that was just how I recalled it. And I could tell that story just to say these things actually do work, personal experience. And I remember just a gynecologist saying, wow, that's really interesting, because when a person is born, a baby is born, that is the dominant sense in the first weeks of life. Smell. You recognize everything by its smell. And they said, yeah, that's actually accurate. That's people who do the brain scans. The nose is the most important one. When you have personal experience of that, it's obvious. And that's why I tell new mothers, for goodness sake, don't change your perfume in the first weeks of your baby's life. Otherwise, they won't know who the hell you are, because they won't recognize you. It's like having a different face to a baby. And that's personal experience, that works. So what you do next, and I can't tell you what happens next, but just describe in theory, in just basically the framework of it. Earlier, please. Just say that, earlier, please. Your mind is like a well-trained dog. You tell it to do something, it does it straight away. And go earlier. Either time in your mother's womb, which is very common, or your past life. But there's a warning. And the warning is, if you get your past life, the most common experience of your past life is your death experience. For two reasons. It's the closest one to this life, and also it's one of the most traumatic, unforgettable. And so a few people have tried this, they've had the strong meditation to be able to do this, they say, never again. Please, you shouldn't have asked me to do that, Ajahn Brahm. It was so painful. Because when you're back here, you're actually re-experiencing it. It's not like a memory, like you remember what you had for dinner, or this evening, which was nothing. Sorry, I shouldn't remind you of that. Yeah. It's not like you remember what you had for lunch today. That's like just one type of memory. This is being back there, re-experiencing everything. So this is where you re-experience your death moment, which is very unpleasant. So if that ever happens to you, the solution, don't just say, don't want to do this again. You're missing a great opportunity. Instead, just say, earlier, please. And then you go back earlier, before your death moment. And so you can actually get into a previous life. The next thing to do is an amazing just, once I tell you how to do it, then you remember it. You get a past life. Get some information, some details. I know all you need to think is, what was my name? And don't just get your nickname. Don't say if that was, if I was looking back at this life, I'd say Ajahn Donut. That's not helpful. Get your passport name. And when you get your passport name, then where is this? Not just Australia. It's the Jhana Grove Serpentine. And then get many details. What's the year? What's the date? Who was I married to? Who's my friends? What did I do? Get all the details, because people just want confirmation, so that when you come out of that experience, you can check it out. We have libraries these days. We have records. So you can find out whether this person actually existed or not. Get the information which you can't get from any other source. And then when you check it out, wow, that's true. That was actually happened. There was a person by that name who really existed. So that's one way. That's the difficult way of doing it, I must say. But you're on a meditation retreat, it might happen. It's a cool thing to do. The easier way of doing it is actually get hypnotic regression, which actually just gets into your mind, contacts your mind, and then you get some memories of your previous life. If you get a really good hypnotist, then they can get you into some amazing past lives. And again, with the details, so you can check out to convince yourself who you were before. And the other way is sometimes spontaneous. And This is one of those stories, and it just shows you've got to be careful with these past life memories. If you do get them, sometimes don't spread them around. You can tell your closest friends, or you can tell someone like me, but a lot of times people think you're crazy, because this is what happened to this gentleman. He was called Roy Hudd, Hudd, and he was a TV personality when I was a young man. He'd be on the TV, but he never made it big time internationally. So everyone knew him. He was a very funny man. But he wrote this article after I became a monk. I saw it in Australia, which stopped his career. His career hit a brick wall after this because he reported a past life spontaneous memory. It was fascinating, actually, just who he was in his past life. So what had happened, he was performing in a theatre, doing some sort of play, some comedy show. And the London government had made a new one-way system which no one could understand. He got terribly lost on his way back from the theatre, trying to find his way home. And he went to streets in London he'd never seen before and got totally just lost, days before GPS. And he turned a corner hoping that he could recognize his surroundings, and he did, but in such a weird way. One of those times you get goosebumps all over. He recognized the street from his previous life. And it all flashed back in front of him, who he was before, and the house where he lived. And he knocked on the door of that house, and they recognized him because he was a TV personality. He said, "Roy Hudd, what are you doing here?" And that's what he said, "I used to live here before." So what are you talking about? We lived here for 50 years or something. He said, "In my previous life." And there was in those days, in the 1910s, 20s, 30s, before the Second World War, in UK there was this music hall. And one of the most famous music hall entertainers was a person called Dan Leno, Leno. And because he was so well known, anyone who's been to London, famous people, they have these blue circular plaques on the houses where they lived. Winston Churchill lived here. Alexander Fleming discovered penicillin here. They're all over the city of London for tourist reasons. And he had his plaque on the wall there, Dan Leno lived here. That was him in his previous life. And he took the inhabitants all over the house. He knew everything, where all the renovations were. And I checked him out on the internet. He's written books about music hall. He's an expert on music hall in those days, especially Dan Leno. The reason was because that was him before. And fascinating, he was an entertainer in his previous life, and he did the same thing I think the thing is maybe still alive, I'm not sure, but very old now, in this life as well. So the same talents, the same inclinations. So those are the characteristics which go from life to life. If you're a doctor in this life, you're probably a doctor in your past life. The inclinations are the same. So he wrote that article. He thought it'd be important to tell people. But because he was contracted to, I think it was called the ITV in England, not the BBC, but the ITV. And the head of that organization was a very devout Catholic. And as soon as he saw that article, that was it. No more work. He got the sack. Because you're challenging people quite seriously. A well-known personality, many people trusted him. He had all the information. It was, so convincing. So that was him in his previous life. But because he published it, he really got hammered, lost his career. So be careful. Some people think you're crazy. But how can you prove it to other people? All the evidence is there. But anyway, that's why I think it's really cool to find out. who you were before. Da da da. Anyway, oops. God, I should stop all this, otherwise you won't be able to get into these questions until your next life. I won't finish anything. Respected Master Ajahn, one day when you became Arahat and vanished, can you still use your willpower to come back to this planet and teach the other living beings here? Of course not. The Buddha didn't do that. You don't need to come back again. The Buddha, his teachings are still alive today. It's one of his famous sayings. The one who sees the Buddha sees the Dhamma. The one who sees the Dhamma sees the Buddha. So is the Dhamma still alive today? So is the Buddha. The Buddha lives. Because the Dhamma lives. So you don't need the person anymore. Look, I could be out of here tomorrow. So many of the talks on YouTube, you know all the jokes. You know all the stories, so you don't need me anymore. Time to go? No. You won't let me go. So anyway, so that's what happens. You don't worry about teachings. So don't worry about teachers, it's teachings. That is one of the reasons why. You know, in Buddhism, 3 refuges. The Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. You don't go to refuge in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and Ajahn Chah. You don't go to refuge in Buddha, the Dhamma, and Venerable Thich Nhat Hanh. You don't go for refuge to the Buddha, the Dhamma, whatever master is or mistress is around. I don't know why they do that. You know, in the Chinese tradition, we always call monks masters. And you've got really great nuns. So why don't you call them mistresses? Well, it's fair enough. You've got like head of the Tzu Chi Foundation. Really great nun. So why don't you call her mistress? Because it doesn't work, does it? So anyway, yeah, where was I going with that one? Oh yeah, so that's why you go to refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha, not people. Is pursuing dream can be concerned as attachment, and is it wrong in Buddhist way? A child wants to be a doctor when he or she grows up. Yeah, we have all these aspirations, but we change those aspirations. When I was a young man, I wanted to be the greatest lover in my college. I never achieved that goal, thank goodness. Instead, he became a monk. If you asked me what I wanted to be when I grow up, when I was 7, I would have never said I want to be a monk. So pursuing dreams change after a while. And so that's why your aspiration should always just be made out of rubber. Find a better aspiration and go for that. Why do good things happen to bad people? Why do bad things happen to good people? It is because bad things happen to good people because they know how to make use of it. The hardest exams are given to the ones who are the most intelligent. You don't give an exam on theoretical physics to someone in grade 2. It's a total waste of time. But once you get to university level, then you get the really hard exams. So it's not bad things. It's opportunities. The tough exams are given to the ones who are the most advanced. And so why do good things happen to bad people? Because they're stupid. They don't know how to deal with quantum physics. So they know how to do some good things. So you know the old stories. You step in the dog shit. That's the fertilizer. It's not a bad thing which happens to you. It's a great opportunity for growth. It's not bad things. It's opportunities. That's why. That's why I never got married, because I was far too advanced to do that. Anyway, what have we done to deserve Donald Trump? Is there something called collective karma? Yeah, number one, you didn't vote in the United States. Number one, you kept listening to promises and fake news. It was really obvious. So, and the whole political system over there, crikey, just he who makes us the most outrageous statements is the one who gets elected. Madness. But anyway, we learn from our mistakes, hopefully. You learn to migrate to a country like Australia. Pauline Hanson, look, Pauline Hanson used to own a fish and chip shop. And I like fish and chips. So that means anyone who ran a fish and chip shop can't be all bad. No, so she's a bit crazy. But why do people vote for crazy people? They're entertaining, aren't they? They get lots of coverage on the news. You get a sort of a sensible person, nobody likes to even print their name because no one pays much attention. You say something really outrageous and crazy and it's front page news. So that's a problem. But what I'm really interested in now is newspapers are dying. And social media, you know, the tweets, internet, other sort of stuff, that is becoming a little bit more interesting. And even like the phenomena like Wikipedia, the old place where you can get reliable information was from encyclopedias. And they're dead now. You can't buy an encyclopedia anymore. Because things like Wikipedia, which is joint source, has been proved again and again to be a far more accurate source of information. So even like kids, high school, universities, they can quote an article on Wikipedia, and that is like counted as good research, because it's accurate. So it's wonderful when people can't control information, because the control of information is how people corrupt power. The one who controls information can control people. And once information becomes uncontrollable, because everybody, could actually contribute to that, that is an interesting development in our modern world. Which is why sort of people who understand that and don't listen to CNN or to other people, but get online. That is much harder to control because there's no money involved, free source, and then you get really accurate information. If nobody is perfect and nothing is perfect, we are somebody and have something, so we are not perfect. How to be a nobody and nothing so we can be perfect? Disappear. So who do you think you are? I am only a temporary Ajahn Brahm. I tell jokes now, but soon, give me a few more years and I'll forget the punchlines. Your brain starts to degrade. It happens to all people. You let go, as I say, Alzheimer's, dementia. I encourage that by my teachings. Let go of the past. Forget about it. Let go of the future. And just be alone. Be socially disengaged. Which are three of the well-known qualities of someone who's demented. It's true, And I teach people about to be demented, Alzheimer's. Because I went to this, it's crazy, this seminar I went to in Renchi Hospital about old age, dementia, Alzheimer's, what it is and how it works. And when I got the definition of it, I said, well, I'm encouraging people to do that. Just be careful. The difference between dementia and being in the present moment is it's a choice rather than you have to be in the present moment. But I went to see my mum when she had dementia. She didn't even know who I was, but there's many advantages in that. And one of the wonderful advantages is that when you have no identity, you have no idea of possessions. And that was when I walked into this locked ward, dementia ward, because if you get out, you don't know how to get back again. And so that first thing my brother said, "That's not your mother's dress she was wearing." You know, my mother was wearing somebody else's dress. And my brother was the one who looked after her, bought all her clothes for her. And so my brother knew exactly what was my mum's dress and what was other people's dress. And then he stopped himself and laughed. He said, "Oh yeah, crikey, this happens so regularly." Because when you got dementia, you got no sense of ownership. So everybody in the whole world, they just go into a room, they like the dress and it fits, they put it on. So somebody wears my mother's dresses and she wears other people's dresses. It's called sharing. Imagine if that happened, you know, in Hong Kong or Indonesia. You wouldn't need to go buying so many dresses. You go to the next store, you find a dress you like, you put it on. And the person next door, you know, put your dresses on, you've got much more choice. You've got a much bigger wardrobe from which to choose from, not just your own. I thought that was really cute. People have no sense of ownership, so they share. So there's some advantages of being demented. I always see the positive side in anything, I must admit. So anyway, but we have so much ownership these days, we don't share anything, because we've got too big a sense of self. And you see that when some of those things which give you an identity, who you are, it's taken away in things like dementia, and you have this natural sharing, and you don't own anything. So it's wonderful, you can actually share anything. So this evening, to give it a try, just go into other people's rooms. If you see a dress there you like, and share. You don't own anything, not me, not mine, not a self, just a process, that's all. So if anyone feels like wearing a robe tomorrow, fine, you can take my robe, but you'll have to be here to give the talk in the morning. Okay, I think that's enough now. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay, thanks for those questions. I always like